I always thought my family was perfect, or at least what I wanted perfect to look like. Abdul, did you finish your homework? Mom's voice echoed down the hallway. She had that soft, warm tone that made you forget anything bad, even your brother. Yeah, Mom, all done, I said, trying to sound casual, but Alex, he had to step in. Finished? I did mine in half the time, he said, grinning, leaning against the doorframe. I swallowed hard. It was always a contest with him. Always. You always have to compare, don't you? I muttered under my breath. But he heard. Just stating facts. Little brother, he said, smirking. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile. Mom didn't notice. Dad never did. That's what hurt the most. Not that Alex competed, but that no one else seemed to see it. Breakfast was the same. Dad telling stories about his youth, Mom fussing over the pancakes, and Alex, sitting there somehow turning every sentence into a chance to shine. Remember when I got the science award? He said, beating everyone? Yeah, I muttered, pushing my syrup around my plate. You? Oh, you came second, he added lightly. Not maliciously, but it stung anyway. Mom laughed. Dad chuckled. I smiled. Numbao. That's how it always was. Alex, the golden boy, me, the quiet shadow, and I let it slide, because I loved them. I loved them so much I pretended his constant wins didn't hurt. Later we were in the living room. Dad was talking about something, his business, a new investment, and Alex kept interrupting, offering better ideas, louder opinions, drawing everyone's eyes, and I watched, quietly. You know, I said finally, after Alex paused, sometimes I think Dad should let me speak too. Dad waved a hand. We hear you, son. It steps fine. Alex rolled his eyes, muttering, fine, if that makes you happy. I smiled, but inside it twisted. Happy? I wasn't happy. Not really, not when I had to constantly fight for space in my own family. I remembered last summer, the camping trip. Alex had taken the best spot by the lake, the one I had been looking forward to. First come, first serve, he'd said. I'd nodded, pretending it didn't matter, but I had stayed up all night, thinking, why is it always him? Why does he get it all? Mom and Dad never saw, or maybe they did and didn't want to notice. Either way, I stayed silent. Always silent. I leaned back on the couch, tracing the scratches on the armrest, thinking about tomorrow, the will reading. My father's will, he'd called us in for a family meeting, something important. Alex bounced in excitement. I can wait to see what Dad left us. Yeah, I said quietly. Me too. Mom smiled. It's just a family matter, dear. Don't fit think too much. I nodded, but a flicker of unease ran through me. I held the original will in my drawer. I'd kept it safe, just in case, but even knowing I had it didn't stop a pit of dread from forming in my stomach. Alex caught my glance. You nervous? He asked, half teasing. Just curious, I said. He grinned. Don't worry. I am sure Dad left something nice for me too. The words hit me like a slap. Something nice for him. That's what he always assumed. And maybe he was right, at least in the eyes of everyone else. I looked around the living room. Dad was chatting with an old friend. Mom was humming, setting out cookies. Alex was laughing, completely unaware of the storm I was holding in my chest. And I realized, quietly, bitterly, maybe tomorrow wouldn't be about fairness. Maybe it would be about survival. I rose and went to my room, closing the door gently. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I held the original will in my hands. Smooth paper, my father's handwriting, a reminder that I wasn't powerless, not yet. Alex's laughter drifted through the walls. Innocent, carefree, arrogant. I whispered to myself. Tomorrow, we shall see who really belongs here. The house was quiet then, too quiet, and in that silence I felt the first spark of something I hadn't felt before. Not jealousy, not sadness, not fear, something sharper. Determination. I arrived early. The house smelled faintly of polished wood and old books. Dad's study looked the same. Immaculate, intimidating, familiar. My hand clutched the envelope in my pocket. The original will, my father's handwriting, every stroke deliberate, every word carved into my memory. Alex wasn't there yet. Of course not. He loved an entrance. Abdul, you're early, Mom said, her eyes gentle, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. Just wanted to be on time, I said, voice tight. Dad's study felt smaller somehow. The walls lined with portraits of ancestors seemed to watch me, heavy with expectation. Then Alex. The door slammed behind him. Sorry I sat in late, he said, flashing that infuriating grin. Traffic was brutal. Mom laughed. Oh, Alex, you always have an excuse. I'm punctual enough, he said, shrugging, as if it were a charming trait. I swallowed. You could have called. I wanted the dramatic entrance, he said, voice dripping with smugness. You know me. I clenched my fists. I wanted to tell him to sit down, to stop stealing everything, but I said nothing. I had to wait. Watch. The lawyer entered, a tall man, gray hair, eyes sharp as knives. Thank you all for coming, he said. We still begin the reading of Mr. Hassan Sip's will. Alex leaned back, folding his arms. Well, this should be fun, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I glanced at him. Fun for him. Heartbreak for me. Shall we start? The lawyer asked, opening a large leather folder. Alex spoke before I could. I read mine first, he said. I got the copy Dad gave me. I froze. Something cold slithered in my chest. Alex. Relax, little brother, he said, smirking. You can go second. No one stopped him. No one questioned it. He held up the paper, perfect in every way. My stomach twisted. I recognized the font. The paper. It wasn't mine, not the original. A forgery. He began to read. Words I should have read. Words I should have claimed. Words I had memorized. Every comma. Every clause. And I leave my estate in equal measure to my children. He faltered slightly, pretending, and then glanced up with a grin. Except for Abdul. Abdul has been given his share early, as discussed. The room gasped. Mom Sep's hand flew to her mouth. Dad Sep's old friend muttered, Oh, I see. I wanted to scream. To throw the envelope on the table and shout the truth. But I couldn't. Not yet. I was paralyzed. Alex looked at me, smug, victorious. I'm just following Dad's wishes, he said softly, perfectly innocent. Alex? I said, my voice barely a whisper. Everything okay? Mom asked, confused. Yeah, I lied. Fine. I sank into the chair, stomach churning, fingers trembling around the envelope in my pocket. Every clap Alex received, every nod of approval, felt like a punch. The lawyer glanced at me. Abdul? I shook my head. Couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Alex caught my eye and winked. Don't set worry, you shall get your turn. I wanted to throw the table across the room, wanted to tear him apart with words, but I couldn't. Silence became my weapon, for now. After he finished, the room erupted in murmurs. How thoughtful. Dad always knew what he was doing. Well, that makes sense. And there I sat, invisible, betrayed, helpless. My mind raced. How? How did he do this? Who helped him? How had he forged the will so perfectly? And why? Why did everyone believe him so easily? I excused myself, retreating to the hallway, my chest burned, heart pounding. I pressed the envelope to my chest, feeling the weight of truth in my hands. I whispered to no one, I have the original, I have the proof. I just need the right moment. Alex's laughter floated down the hall, carefree, arrogant, infuriating. I clenched my jaw, every nerve in my body screamed, not yet, not yet. Wait. Mom appeared beside me. Are you all right, Abdul? Just thinking, I said, voice low, tight with rage. She smiled, oblivious. Don spit let Alex get to you. He spit's always been dramatic. I wanted to scream at her too, to tell her what had just happened, but I swallowed the words, kept my silence, because silence can be more powerful than shouting. I slid the envelope into my pocket, fingers pressed against it like a lifeline. And as I watched Alex bask in his victory, something hardened inside me. I wasn't just going to watch anymore. Not this time. Not ever again. Tomorrow, everything would change. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, pressing my forehead to the cold wood. The laughter, the applause, Alex's smug grin, it all echoed in my head. I could still hear it. Unbelievable, I whispered to myself, voice trembling. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. My fingers brushed over the envelope in my pocket. The original will, and for the first time that day, I felt a spark of control. Just a spark. I pulled out my journal, pen in hand, pages blank but waiting. I began to write. Alex smiled like a hero. Everyone believed him. Everyone except me. How? How did he do it? The ink smudged as my hand shook. I remembered the small betrayals. The subtle cuts that no one noticed. Last Christmas, he accidentally spilled juice on my shirt right before the family picture. "You're clumsy," he said, laughing. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, swallowed the sting. Or the time at Dad's office party. He took credit for the proposal I'd worked on for months. "Team effort," he said, but it was always him in front. Always him. I slammed the journal shut. Rage burned in my chest. I whispered aloud, "No more, not again." Then I laughed. Low, quiet, dangerous. I thought about the will, the forged copy, his confidence, his arrogance, how easily he had stolen my moment. I opened the journal again, this time making a list. Every lie he'd told, every inconsistency, every time he got what I deserved. Yesterday the will claimed I got my share early, but that's impossible. Last year, the office credit blamed the intern for mistakes I made. Childhood, Mom's favorite chair, he always got it first. The list grew. The storm inside me grew too. Silent, steady, building. I whispered into the quiet room. "I said I'll fix this. Quietly, carefully, perfectly." I thought about confronting him right away, shouting, screaming, tearing the house apart. But no, I had to be smart. I had to plan. Patience. I imagined watching him stumble, the family slowly realizing the truth. The moment when his grin faded, when the applause turned to murmurs. "Not yet," I muttered. "Soon, soon." I flipped through the journal, writing down every observation from today. Mom's confusion, Dad's distracted gaze, Alex's subtle smirks, how everyone fell for it. "I need proof," I said aloud. "Hard proof. No mistakes." I traced the envelope with my fingers. The original will was my lifeline, my leverage. I would hold it until the perfect moment. I remembered the last time Alex had pushed me too far. Middle school science fair. He sabotaged my experiment. "Accidents happen," he said, smiling like nothing was wrong. I cried that night. Alone. "Not this time," I whispered. The storm in me wasn't loud yet. It was patient, slow, growing under the surface. I could feel it coiling, ready to strike. I checked my phone. Alex had already texted Mom, bragging about the will. Everything worked out perfectly. "Dad would be proud," he wrote. I read it over and over, letting the words sink in. I wrote his words in my journal, underlined twice. "We'll see who's proud," I muttered. I stared at the ceiling, dark shapes forming behind my eyelids. I imagined the confrontation, the proof laid out, the family stunned, Alex helpless. The slow crumble of his arrogance. I smiled faintly. Not happiness. Satisfaction. Quiet. Controlled. I whispered to myself, "I said I'm not broken. I said I'm just waiting. And when the time comes, you said'll see." I closed the journal and locked it in my drawer. Every page a reminder. Every word a strategy. I traced the envelope again. The original will. My father's trust. My secret advantage. Alex didn't know. Mom didn't know. Dad's gone, but his words were still here, still guiding me. I took a deep breath. The calm before the storm. I stood and walked to my window. The night was still, the streets empty, perfect silent, like me. Soon, I whispered to the darkness. "It's steps coming. Just wait." And for the first time since today began, I felt it control, power, the quiet, unshakable knowledge that I wasn't defeated. I was instead. Not yet. I left the house before anyone else was awake. The street was empty, fog curling around the streetlights. I clutched the envelope again, the original will, feeling its weight like a promise. The lawyer's office smelled of leather and old paper. The receptionist barely looked up. "Abdul," Mr. Khan said as soon as he saw me. "What brings you here so early?" "Something urgent," I said, voice low. "I need to check some documents." He raised an eyebrow but gestured me in. His office smelled faintly of ink and authority. I placed the envelope on his desk, careful not to breathe too loudly. This is the original will? He asked, eyes narrowing. Yes, I said. I need to verify something. He leaned back. You mean Alex? I clenched my jaw. He presented a copy. A fake one. Mr. Consip's eyes flicked up. That Sep's serious. I need your help. Just for now. Don't tell anyone. He nodded. We shall go step by step. I pulled out a folder of old documents. My research meticulous. Receipts, copies of letters, dates. I cross-checked everything, noting discrepancies in Alex's story. You've been keeping records, Mr. Khan said, impressed. Every small detail matters, I replied, barely looking up. As I worked, flashes of the past hit me. Alex in the office last year charming the clients while I did the work. You should take credit for this, he whispered to the manager, and they listened. I remembered school awards, holidays, even small things. He always edged me out, left me invisible. And now this. The will. I taped the session on my phone, discreetly, every confirmation, every acknowledgement of discrepancies, captured. I needed proof, undeniable proof. Later I visited the notary office. Alex was there, talking to relatives. I watched him. The same smug smile, the same arrogant gestures. I told you Dad had a plan, he said, to anyone who would listen. Abdul Sep's already settled. I've been just following orders. I stayed hidden in the corner, recording everything. Every word, every laugh, every casual lie. I whispered under my breath, you think you star untouchable. One cousin asked, are you sure about that, Alex? Of course. Why wouldn't I be? He laughed, the sound grating. My hand tightened on the recorder. Every word built the case, brick by brick. Later I compared documents at home. Old contracts, bank statements, letters from Dad, each one a puzzle piece. I noticed patterns in Alex's manipulations. He was meticulous, but predictable. He always does this, I muttered, flipping through a notebook. Always takes credit. Always lies. Always thinks he Sep's clever. I noted every small detail in the journal. Dates, places, people, conversations. The arsenal was forming quietly, methodically. At lunch I confronted Mom casually. Have you noticed anything strange about Alex lately? Strange? No, he's been so helpful, she said, oblivious. Helpful or cunning? I asked, letting the word hang. She frowned. Abdul don't be jealous. I smiled faintly, hiding the anger. Not jealous, observant. In my room I replayed recordings. Every claim, every exaggeration, every manipulation Alex had pulled in front of family and friends. Each time I heard his voice, my resolve hardened. I whispered to myself, you suffed her careful, too careful, but not careful enough. I started mapping it out, a timeline. Every lie, every betrayal, every moment Alex had subtly isolated me, or made himself look better. Each entry, another arrow aimed at him. I remembered the night he accidentally deleted my project files in college. Whoops, he had said. Everyone laughed. I had cried alone in the library. Not this time, I murmured. This time it sets me. I reviewed the forged copy of the will. Subtle differences. The font slightly off, margins inconsistent, a missing comma that Dad would never have missed. I jotted down notes. These weren't mistakes. They were proof. I took a deep breath. Patience, I whispered. Build the case. Wait. Strike when the moment is perfect. Every step I took now was calculated. Each conversation with relatives, each silent observation, each document examined. They were all pieces of the plan. The storm inside me grew, quiet, relentless. I thought about confrontation. Not yet. Now was for gathering evidence, watching, listening, recording, waiting. Alex laughed again in my memory. The smugness, the confidence, the thought that he had won. I smiled, low and dark. You think you Stev won, but I stem just beginning. By nightfall my room was littered with notebooks, printouts and recordings. A map of Alex's lies, all ready to expose him. I sat back, tired but focused. Every move you made, every lie, I have it all. I traced the envelope one last time, the original will. My father's words, my truth, my advantage. Soon, I whispered. Soon, Alex. Your game ends. The storm wasn't loud yet. It didn't need to be. It only needed patience, and I had all the time in the world. I knew I couldn't fight Alex alone. Not yet, not with him basking in victory, untouchable in the family's eyes. I dialed my cousin Sammy. Sammy, I said, voice low, careful, we need to talk, privately. There was a pause. Abdul, what about? Alex, I said, letting the name hang like smoke. I need you to listen. No one else can know. All right, he said cautiously. Meet me at the cafe near the park. I arrived first, the air thick with tension. Sammy slid into the booth across from me, glancing around. All right, spill it. I have proof Alex forged Dad Sep's will, I said quietly. And Sep's been manipulating everyone for years. This isn't Sep's just about inheritance. It Sep's everything. Sammy Sapcha's eyes widened. Are you serious? I am serious, I replied. And I need your help. Just listen, watch. You know him, he trusts no one more than himself. He leaned back, chewing his lip. I always suspected he exaggerated things. But this, I never thought. I need you to observe quietly. If you hear something strange, tell me. Sami nodded slowly. I can do that. But Abdul, be careful, he Sep's sharp. I sped been careful, I said. And I spell be more careful, but we need allies. Next I met Mrs. Raza, a retired lawyer and old family friend. I knew Alex respected her, but he'd never confide fully. Mrs. Raza, I said, holding her hands gently. I need your insight, Alex, he Sep's hiding things. She frowned, concern etched in her face. Abdul, what are you saying? I can set explain fully here. Just look for inconsistencies, watch his behavior around documents, contracts, anything. I need you to see what I see. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. I self-help, quietly. I left her house feeling a small spark of hope. These were small victories, but they counted, allies in the shadows. Then there was Amir, a relative normally loyal to Alex. I approached him carefully. Amir, can we talk? I asked, leaning against the gate of his home. He hesitated. Abdul, what is this about? Alex is instead telling the truth, I said bluntly. He Sep's hiding things, and it's Sep's going to hurt everyone, eventually. I need someone on the inside. Amir Sep's gaze flicked downward. I didn't set no, I thought he was always careful. I know, I said softly, but even he makes mistakes. Just watch, observe, tell me what you see. He nodded slightly, tension in his shoulders. All right, quietly, but be careful, Abdul. If he finds out, I'll be careful, I whispered, knowing the warning was heavier than words. Meanwhile, Alex continued his charade. I watched from a distance as he bragged to neighbors and family friends. Everything went perfectly, he said, voice dripping with smugness. Dad would be proud. Really? Someone asked, skeptical. Of course, he replied smoothly. Abdul Sep's fine, he got what he was supposed to. Dad knew best. I clenched my fists, hiding a smirk. They didn't see the cracks forming yet, but I did. At a small family gathering, I noticed subtle shifts. Alex laughed too loudly, overcompensating. He corrected small details unnecessarily, drawing attention to himself. Did you really handle the Jones account alone? A cousin asked. Of course, he said, puffing his chest. Abdul assisted, but I did the heavy lifting. I sat quietly, sipping tea, letting the tension build. One by one my allies whispered insights later. Sami noting Alex's overconfidence. Amir mentioning a slip in a story. Mrs. Raza pointing out minor legal inconsistencies. Each observation was another thread in my web. I didn't intervene, not yet. I thought back to every betrayal Alex had committed, taking credit for my achievements, subtly isolating me, charming family and friends, while I stayed silent. Every misstep recorded, every lie catalogued. The storm inside me had grown, coiling, silent but lethal. I whispered into the dark of my room that night. Soon you shall see, Alex. Every word, every misstep, every lie, you can hide forever. I smiled faintly. Not satisfaction yet, not revenge, just the quiet thrill of power. Watching him unravel slowly, socially, privately, controlled exposure, patient observation, that was the game now. I traced the envelope once more. My father's original will, my weapon, my advantage. And I knew every ally I recruited, every secret uncovered, every small betrayal exposed quietly, brought me closer to the moment Alex would finally stumble. Not yet, I whispered. Patience, let them see the truth on their own. I still guide it, silently. The night wrapped around my room. The storm wasn't loud, but it was gathering. Ready? I closed my eyes, letting the weight of the plan settle, knowing the next moves would require precision, timing, and control. The first cracks were forming, and I was ready to watch him fall. I arrived at the family gathering with a calm smile, the envelope still tucked safely in my bag. No one knew the storm I carried, the arsenal I'd been quietly assembling. They only saw me, patient, measured, almost forgiving. Alex was already there, flaunting his victory like a king. I watched him laugh, the smugness curling at the edges of his mouth. I clenched my hand around my coffee cup, pretending to sip, pretending to be unaffected. Abdul, you look relaxed, Alex said, loud enough for half the room to hear. Finally accepted that I handled things for both of us. I smiled slowly, calm, unbothered. Of course, I said softly. You did a fine job, or so I hear. He chuckled, the sound dripping with arrogance. Thanks, little brother. It's what I do best. I let him bask in it, for now. I started casually conversing with Aunt Farah, dropping subtle questions about the will and Alex's claims. Did Alex mention Dad's instructions about the estate to you? I asked lightly. She frowned. He said Abdul had received his share early. Isn't Step that right? I tilted my head, thoughtful. That's interesting. I have Dad's notes here though. They suggest something different. I let the comment linger. No accusations, just curiosity, just doubt. She blinked. Really? I didn't know that. I sipped my tea. I thought it was worth double-checking. Old family records can be tricky sometimes. Aunt Farah's frown lingered as she drifted away. Mind churning, just as I planned. I moved to my cousin Sammy, casually mentioning details from the documents I gathered. Funny, isn't it? How Alex described Dad's Step's letters last week. I compared them with the originals. Sami Sep's eyes widened subtly. Wait, you did? Of course, I said, smiling innocently. I like to understand things clearly. It Sep's hard when stories don't match the facts. Sammy's lips pressed together. He glanced around, clearly registering my calm authority. Alex noticed the whispers, his confident posture starting to tense. I caught it, that tiny flinch in his demeanor. The first crack. Everything okay? He asked me later, forcing a grin. Everything Sep's fine, I said, voice soft, deceptively forgiving, just talking with relatives, clarifying some details, nothing to worry about. His eyes narrowed slightly, suspicion creeping in. Good. Let him stew. I leaned into another conversation, this time with a family friend, casually mentioning inconsistencies I'd noticed in Alex's stories over the past years. You know, I said lightly, Alex once claimed he handled the Smith estate alone, but old letters show that he barely assisted. Surprising how memory works sometimes. The friend's eyebrows shot up. Really? I thought he did most of the work. I shrugged casually. That Sep's what I thought too, but facts are stubborn things. I could see the subtle shift in the room, eyes flicking toward Alex, small murmurs, doubt, suspicion. His grin faltered, replaced by tight lips and shifting posture. Later, I cornered Amir, who had warned me before, and whispered a critical detail I uncovered about a past manipulation. Remember what you saw last year, Amir? It aligns with what I found. He nodded. Quiet. Yes. I never said anything. Now's the time to observe carefully. Watch him crumble. Just observe, I said, voice low, almost a command. I wandered back into the main room, letting the tension build. Alex attempted jokes, small boasts, anything to regain control, but it was too late. Seeds of doubt had been planted. Family members exchanged glances, small whispers brushing past him, unnoticed by him, but orchestrated by me. I caught Mom Sip's eye. She smiled softly at me, unaware of my orchestration. You star so calm, Abdul. It's Stup's impressive. Just trying to see clearly, I said, voice gentle. Sometimes clarity is better than reacting too quickly. Alex's smile was now forced, tight. He laughed at a story no one remembered, corrected a date unnecessarily, tried to assert authority, but every attempt faltered. His usual charm, so reliable, began to lose its effect. I watched the power shift silently, letting it happen naturally. I didn't need to accuse him outright. That would have been clumsy. The doubts, the whispers, the subtle contradictions, it was all unfolding like a slow, deliberate dance. By evening, I noticed the cracks widening. Alex's laughter sounded hollow. He stumbled over details, hesitated before recounting stories. Even his closest allies exchanged uncertain glances. I leaned against the doorway, sipping a final drink. A quiet smile curled at my lips. Not bad for a day's work, I whispered to myself. The storm I'd carried for weeks had begun to show its first signs of life. My allies were aligned, my evidence clear, and the family's trust in Alex was beginning to fracture. I traced the envelope tucked safely in my bag, the original will, my weapon, my truth, my leverage. Alex didn't see it yet, but soon, the shift would be undeniable. And when it happened, there would be no hiding, no deflection. I whispered into the shadows of the room, low and dangerous. The game has changed, Alex, and I stem, finally winning. I found Alex in the study, pretending to read some papers. The usual smug grin was there, but I could see it faltering the moment I stepped into the doorway. Abdul, he said, voice casual, almost too casual, can we just forget all this? No, I said, letting the door click shut behind me. The sound echoed like a verdict. Not anymore. His eyes flicked to the envelope peeking out from my bag. What steps that? That, I said slowly, lifting it, is the truth. The original will, the one you tried to steal. He chuckled nervously. You said you're overreacting. I didn't stet. You did, I cut him off, stepping closer. You presented a fake copy. You lied. You manipulated everyone. You've done this my whole life, Alex. His eyes widened. Abdul, it wasn't set like that. Not like that? I laughed bitterly. You accidentally ruined my science fair project. You took credit for my work at the office. You humiliated me in front of family friends, every chance you got. Alex Sepp's mouth opened and closed, searching for words. I wanted to be noticed. You always had the spotlight. I was scared Sepp'd be overlooked. I froze for a second, surprised by his honesty, but it didn't excuse him. Not after years of quiet torment. Scared? I echoed, voice shaking with rage. You've been scared, Sip, for years while I stayed quiet, and now you think a fake will make everything even. I didn't mean. You never meant anything. I yelled, voice echoing off the walls. Every time, every little thing you manipulated. You lied, you sabotaged. You stole moments meant for me, and for what? His face twisted. I just wanted to feel important, to be appreciated. And now? I asked softly, deadly calm. Do you feel important? Does the applause, the fake praise, fix all the damage you caused? He looked away. The cracks I'd been watching for weeks were fully visible now. I have all the proof, I continued, voice low and controlled. Documents, recordings, inconsistencies you thought no one would notice. Every lie, every slip, catalogued. And now you are powerless. Alex Sepp's hands trembled slightly. Abdul, I never thought you stet. I did think, I said. Every day, I watched, I listened, I planned. And now finally the power is mine. He swallowed hard. Abdul, please. Can we fix this? Fix this? I repeated, incredulous. There sits nothing to fix. You broke trust, shattered bonds, humiliated me. Fixing isn't set enough. You need to understand. You need to see what your actions caused. His shoulders slumped. I see some of it now. Some? I asked coldly. You only see the surface. You still feel the rest soon enough. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Alex's lips pressed into a thin line. Silence hung heavy, suffocating. I took a step closer. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible? To be overlooked while someone else takes your place? Your achievements, your life moments. That was my world. And now, you're the one under the microscope. His voice trembled. I didn't mean to. You never do, I interrupted. You never mean to. But you always do. And now, it's your turn to face the consequences. Silently, calmly, the way I did for years. Alex Sepp's eyes flicked to the envelope in my hand. Fear, real fear, flashed there. You have the will. I have the truth, I corrected him. Truth is more powerful than your lies. You've been exposed in ways you don't even fully see yet. The family doubts you, friends question you. Every lie, unraveling. He shook his head, voice trembling. Abdul, please, we just. No, I said firmly. It's steps over. The power has shifted. You lost the game the moment you decided to deceive everyone, and now, you still watch helpless. As the world sees the real you, the man behind the mask. Tears welled in his eyes. Not proud tears, not defiant. Tears of regret, fear, and realization. I let the silence stretch, letting it settle on him like a weight. Then I spoke softly, almost tenderly. You were my brother Alex, but brothers don't steal, manipulate, humiliate. Brothers don't erase the other. Remember that. Always. He nodded slowly, unable to meet my eyes. The confrontation had ended. Not with violence, not with shouting, but with the lethal shift of power, the kind only years of silent observation could achieve. I turned and walked out, the envelope secure in my bag, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and satisfaction. The storm inside me had broken, the wave of revenge had begun. For the first time in years I felt triumphant. I arrived at the law office early, my steps measured, my breath steady. The envelope with the original will was tucked safely in my bag. Today everything would change. Alex walked in, his confident stride faltering the moment he saw me. That grin, the one he wore as if he'd already won, was gone. For the first time in years, I saw real fear in his eyes. Abdul, he said, voice tight. Can we talk this out first? I shook my head. No, today the truth speaks for itself. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, greeted us formally. Shall we begin? I nodded, and he gestured for Alex to present his copy of the will. Alex smirked, pulling it from his briefcase, unaware that I held the weapon he couldn't see coming. Everyone, like to clarify something, I said calmly, stepping forward. The copy Alex presented is not the original. This is. I placed the envelope on the table, sliding it toward Mr. Harris. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Alex Sepp's lips twitched, his hands shaking slightly. Abdul, what are you? Dawn set, I interrupted, voice low but sharp. Not a word. Mr. Harris carefully opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the document, then lifted to me with a nod. This is indeed the original will, Abdul. Shock rippled across the room. Faces turned from Alex to me, disbelief mingling with curiosity. What? Alex breathed. His voice cracked for the first time. No, that can be. I leaned back, letting the silence press down. It is the original. Your copy, a forgery. You thought no one would notice. You thought you could rewrite Dad Sepp's intentions. But truth always finds its way. Alex Sepp's face turned pale. I didn't mean to. You never do, I said quietly. But you did, and now you face the consequences. Mom gasped, clutching her hands to her chest. Alex, how could you? I just wanted, he stammered, but no one listened. The room had shifted, the doubt, the shock, the disbelief. It was all on him. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. Given this original document, the estate will be distributed according to your father Sepp's true wishes. Any actions taken under the forged will are null and void. Alex Sepp's shoulders slumped. Abdul, please. I can explain. Explain, I echoed, voice steady, cold. Explain the lies, the betrayals, the humiliation, the years you tried to erase me. He turned to the family, desperation in his eyes. It wasn't like I wanted to hurt anyone. But they didn't respond. Their eyes, once so trusting, now reflected caution, suspicion, even disappointment. He had lost his audience, his power in the quietest, cruelest way. I felt a strange mixture of triumph and melancholy. Victory was mine, justice had been served. Yet the bonds we once had, the laughter, the shared memories, the trust, were forever altered. Nothing could fix that. Waited for this day, I said softly, almost to myself, not for revenge alone, but for truth. Alex sank into the chair, defeated. He was quiet now, stripped of the charm he relied on for control. His face, pale and tense, mirrored the consequences he'd long ignored. Abdul? He whispered, voice broken. I said I'm sorry. I never realized. Sorry does instead undo what you have done, I said, voice measured. But it steps clear you understand now. Maybe that step's enough for you. Mom stepped forward, her eyes on me. You handled this so calmly, Abdul. I am proud of you. I nodded, swallowing the tightness in my throat. Thank you, Mom. It was instead easy, but it had to be done. The lawyer began the formal reading of the original will. I watched as Alex flinched at every line, every allocation that favored me correctly, every note of my father's intentions laid bare. The shame, the panic, and the realization of exposure weighed on him like a heavy cloak. You see, I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. The truth, unstoppable. Even when hidden, even when ignored, it comes out. Alex's eyes flicked to mine, pleading. Abdul, please, can we try to move past this? I let the words hang in the air. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe in the brother I once knew. But that brother no longer existed. He had been replaced by someone consumed by fear and guilt. Move past it, I said softly, voice almost gentle. Some things can be undone. Some trust can be rebuilt. But lessons, those last a lifetime. The room was silent as Mr. Harris finalized the distribution. Alex sat, broken and isolated, the weight of his choices pressing down. The family's eyes, previously warm toward him, now held a careful distance. Karma, quiet but devastating, had taken its course. I tucked the original will back into my bag, feeling its weight, not just as proof, but as a symbol. Justice had been served. I had taken back what was mine, and yet the victory was bittersweet. Family would never be the same. The smiles, the laughter, the casual warmth, they were gone, replaced by a careful watchfulness, and I knew, deep down, that was a consequence I would carry with me forever. I looked at Alex one last time. The truth is out, and you live with it. Always? He nodded, silent, defeated, his world quietly unraveling. I stepped out of the room, shoulders straight, heart heavy but resolute, revenge complete. Justice served, truth restored. And in that quiet victory, I felt the fragile balance between triumph and loss, knowing some wounds, even when healed, leave scars forever. I sit alone in the study, the quiet settling around me like a soft blanket. The chaos of the past weeks lingers in my mind. The betrayal, the exposure, the silent victories. The envelope with the original will rests on the desk, a symbol of truth reclaimed. Mom knocks softly and enters. Abdul, can we talk? I look up. She's weary, eyes shadowed by everything that's happened. Sure, Mom, I say, voice calm but careful. She sits across from me. You handled everything so well. I know it cost you more than just time. I nod, staring at my hands. It did. Losing trust in someone you loved, realizing family can betray, it leaves scars. Mom reaches out, placing her hand over mine. But you gained clarity, power, dignity. You stayed true to yourself. I take a deep breath. True, but I can go back to before. I can pretend nothing happened. I can trust blindly again. She squeezes my hand. And you shouldn't you stev grown stronger because of it, and you still survive better than before. I let the silence stretch, letting her words sink in. Outside, the sun filters through the window, soft light casting long shadows. I realize I've changed, not just in power, but in awareness. Alex enters quietly. His presence is tentative, hesitant, as if he fears even standing in the room might shatter him further. Abdul, his voice is low, almost breaking. I want to say I'm sorry. I see now, everything I did, all the pain I caused. I watch him, eyes narrow, heart tight. Sorry doesn't erase years, Alex. Doesn't erase the humiliation, the lies, the stolen moments. Yusef learned this the hard way. He swallows, nodding. I know I'd lost trust, respect, and family, and I deserve it. I let him sit there, absorbing the weight of his own choices. Do you understand now, Alex? Power isn't given, it's earned, and you tried to take it through deceit. That's why you failed. I understand, he whispers. His gaze falls to the floor, defeated. I wish I could undo it, but I can. No, I say softly. You can set, and that seps the lesson. Mom clears her throat. Abdul, we still love you both. But things they sep changed. We need time, space. I nod. Understanding. Family bonds can survive, but they will never be the same. Trust, once broken, leaves a permanent mark. And yet, there is a strange peace in that acknowledgement. I turn my attention to the window, the city stretching beyond. Life continues, indifferent to the chaos within our walls, and I realize, so must I. Alex stands, hesitant. I sut leave you to your peace, and I sut live with what I sut done. Good, I say. Learn from it, grow from it, but don't suck it come back expecting forgiveness you haven't sut earned. He nods, turning toward the door, pauses. Abdul, despite everything, I hope you find happiness. You deserve it. I offer a small, almost imperceptible nod. Thank you. I shall take it one day at a time. The door clicks shut behind him. Silence fills the room again, but it isn't heavy. It's the quiet of resolution, of endings and of beginnings. I lean back in my chair, the envelope still in front of me. The battle is over, but the war within me, the war for self-respect, strength and understanding is just beginning. I recall the faces of everyone involved. Mom, Dad's memory, the lawyer, cousins, friends, their shock, their doubt, their realization of Alex's betrayal. It's over, justice has been served. And yet, in that justice, I feel a pang of loss. Family bonds strained. Moments irretrievably changed. Smiles that won't come as easily. Memories tinged with betrayal. But I also feel power, clarity, self-respect, the knowledge that I can rise from the ashes, no matter the odds. I pick up my journal, pen in hand. Today I write. I reclaim myself. I take what seps mine, not just inheritance, but dignity, strength, and understanding. And I move forward, wiser, stronger, unshaken by false loyalty. The sun sets outside, painting the room in amber light. Shadows stretch long across the floor. But I don't flinch. Shadows are only reminders of the light. I stand, brushing dust off my sleeves. The envelope goes back in the safe, locked away, not just for protection, but as a reminder. Truth can be stolen temporarily, but it will always return. Always. I glance toward the empty hallway, thinking of Alex. He'll face his regrets alone, learn the cost of deceit, and I will rise, not in anger anymore, but in calm, measured strength. I step outside, breathing deeply. The air feels clean, heavy with possibility. Life moves forward, and I move with it, wiser, scarred, but unbroken. For the first time in years, I feel free. I rise from the ashes, carrying all I've gained and all I've lost. And I know, no matter what comes next, I will endure.